Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 7 of my 100-day project. We are in the acrylic ink window for another 3 days. The first 10 days are going to be acrylic ink. When I sat down to do this, I thought, I don't want to think. I'm just going to do something abstract and maybe do some negative shape painting and pull out a figure. So I picked some warm colors. That's where my eye went to. And immediately I saw a face. Surprise, surprise. So I'm working with the Flame Orange, Brilliant Yellow by Rowney, Rubine Red by Liquitex, which is probably my favorite Liquitex color, and Dioxizine Purple, which is this dark color that you see here. That's a Liquitex color as well. And it was those faint lines in the orange that really just, there was a mouth, there was a nose, there was this crazy brow type shape, and the jawline that was already defined. So I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to go with. I taught a workshop today on mark making, and I'm teaching another one tomorrow on what I call messy flowers. And so I was kind of wiped. My energy was a little bit low. I was happy to come paint, but was just sort of like, okay, I don't want to think. And this is kind of the cool thing about not thinking. Things just sort of emerge. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go with this sort of crazy brow shape and make her eye kind of a little bit angled and funky. And so I started to go down that route, and I do end up addressing the proportions a little bit. I'm struggling with not trying to fix the proportions. Part of me wants to just keep it wacky, and I'm thinking maybe what I need to do is set a timer for myself. These have been taking me about 30 minutes, and where would I be if I set my timer for 15 minutes? I think I'd be a lot looser. There'd be a lot more quirky characters. Not that she's not quirky, but you'll see I go in and address a lot of her features. So that's just something I'll consider. It's been great. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this project is because it's a great learning opportunity, not just about how I create figures, but about me, my process, what works, what doesn't work. I have a workflow that I've created for filming and creating these videos, and that's been great to discover. And who knows over the next 93 days if that evolves as well. I am basically just using dioxazine purple for her face until at the very, very end, I bring in another yellowy mix to harmonize things. But at this point, I'm just using that color and trying to get some features in there, adding a little bit of shading. You can see those marks, and I'll bring it up close here in a minute. You'll see those marks that define some of her features. And I just love that bright orange hair. And I really love orange and purple together. I do this a lot in my work, intentionally or unintentionally. I just love them together, kind of the warm versus cool, although purple can be very warm. I love the way they look. I think they're vibrant together, and they just really make me happy. So I tend to do that a lot. I thought in that moment that maybe I'd do something dramatic with a drip from the corner of her eye like I did a couple of days ago, and decided that really wasn't working. It sort of went crossways into her mouth, and I didn't really like that. So I opted out. Again, with acrylic ink, you can lift right at the beginning. If it's still wet, you can kind of come in there and lift a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. I added some more dark purple there, thinking, do I want to make that her brow? What is that? And I didn't really like it. So here I'm covering that up and just making the space for her face a little bit smaller and bringing more attention to her eye. These inks are not opaque, and so you'll see through to some of that purple, and I just go with it. Kind of gives it a little bit more interest. I figured I'd make her eye a little bit orange, so I went in there and added some orange in there. I wanted to bring some highlight, so I added some titanium white to bring in a little bit of light into her eye. And then I need to wait for that to dry before I can go in and fix her pupil. Adding in a bit of a brow with that dioxazine purple. She kind of looks like Rumor Willis. Anybody else get a Rumor Willis vibe? A little bit. It's interesting. So just working on her eye a little bit there. I always like to add variation in the iris. If you look at your iris, especially in the light, it's not one color. It's got different shades, and some folks have gorgeous irises that have lots and lots of different colors. So I'm adding a little bit of orange, a little bit of white, trying to get that to something interesting, adding a little bit of that darker purple and a little highlight there to bring her to life. So at this point, I'm starting to think about, do I want to change the shape of her face at all, her jawline? And I've got a lot of wet paint on the surface right now. And I know if I get a wet brush close to any of those colors, they're going to bleed into areas I don't want. So I'm trying to let things dry. That's why you see a little bit of a few pauses in the video where I step away and try to give it time to dry. In the meantime, I'm getting stuff ready for my workshop tomorrow. This is where I'm playing around with this jaw shape and thinking to myself, do I want to shade it more? Do I want to bring it up? I'm using some acrylic ink here because it's a little bit transparent to play with that shape of the jaw a little bit more. And you'll notice immediately it changes her face the minute I bring that jawline up. I ended up bringing in some acrylic paint here just because I was impatient and I didn't want to keep layering the acrylic ink. So I brought in the white acrylic paint, which is far more opaque. And that allowed me to adjust her jawline. And then I'm bringing that paint over the rest of the paper just so that it kind of matches a little bit. I haven't decided yet if I want to do a background. I ended up off camera putting in a neckline for her so her head wasn't floating. So I'm sorry I didn't capture that on camera. And at this point, what I'm doing is deciding maybe what I'll do is add a little bit of warmth to the background. The purple in her skin is one shade for the most part right now, and it's very kind of cold compared to her hair, and that doesn't feel like who she is. She's got a lot more energy. And so I'm going to bring in some yellow. I'm mixing off to the side some of that yellow with a little tiny dash of purple just to harmonize it, and some white. And so I'm going to fill in some of the background here. I end up taking it a little bit lighter. So it's a bit of a neutral yellow color, which is going to help the other colors pop more because of its neutral undertone. But I do go in and add a little bit of that yellowy color into some of the highlights on her face and on her body. Again, to unify, but also to give a little bit of warmth into her skin tone, which at this point is very, very cool. And we're pretty close to being done at this point. I'm just gathering, again, a little bit of that yellowy color just to bring in, to unify. When you use one color somewhere, you really want to use it somewhere else, just so it looks like it's in harmony. And I'll get a close-up here in a minute, but where there's that highlight, I'm just bringing in a little bit of that yellow to bring things together. And so if you don't see me moving, that's what I'm doing. I'm off to the side. I try to zoom in a little bit for you, and so you can't see my palette. So leave me a comment if you like it zoomed out more so you can see my palette, or if you prefer to see my painting a little bit closer. I can zoom in even more so you can see the painting even more if that's useful for you. Especially in this vertical orientation, I know it's not always easy to see things super up close. So just lightening up that yellow a little bit so it's not quite so eye-catching. Still very neutral. A little bit of yellow and a drop of that purple just makes a really lovely neutral. So you can see there's a little bit of warmth in her face now and in her skin tone. And there she is. There is our figure for the day. Love that fiery orange color. And her funky eye. Her eye's kind of funky, but I love it. Thanks for joining me. Day 7 in the books. We're getting close to the end of our acrylic ink window. Take care of you, and thanks for watching. Bye.